Thank you, Sally, and hi, everyone. As Sally said, my name is Paola, and I know that 8-0 can be a bit hard, so I think all of you know how to say hello in Spanish, right? Hola, so it's Paola. You can practice. So my name is Paola. I was born and raised in Peru. I went to college there, and I majored in biology. I knew if I wanted to become a better scientist, I couldn't stay home just because the opportunities for me to grow as a scientist are very limited. So that's how I decided to come here to the US, and now I'm entering my 5th year as a PhD student in cellular molecular biology over at Stanford University. So I live in California right now. And I'm also going to share a little bit of the research I do, and later on, I'll get to talk about how I bridged that with what we've been talking about during this weekend. So I work with fruit flies, and I study how stem cells become intestinal cells in adults. And I won't go into the details, but I really like studying how this whole process happens. And later on, this is not going to be part of my project, but there's the hope that in the future, the knowledge that I'll generate will be useful to develop treatments in us humans. So,
thank you. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. My name is Nirshila, and it's a way to kind of remember my name. Back in the 7th grade, I was a part of a booger ball team and a part of physical education. And the name of my team was Don't Go Near Sheila. So that would be a little funny. So that's a great way to remember my name. But anyhow, I am a 2nd-year doctoral student studying public health at the School of Community and Global Health at Claremont Graduate University in Los Angeles. I am Fiji Indian, so Indian from the Fiji Islands, and back when I was in 1990, my family immigrated from the Fiji Islands to California. So I grew up in the Bay Area, and we actually immigrated under the Diversity Visa Act. At that time, I think it's very much prevalent now. It's a lottery visa system, so it's given out to certain countries where they want to increase diversity into the workflow in America. I don't know if it's prevalent today with the political climate. But so my family's been living here in California since 1990, and I'm studying public health, and I've been in public health for over 10 years. With my education, I've taken time off to work, and then I did my master's, and then from my master's I took time off to do my now I'm in my doctoral program, and a lot of my work has been with community. California is a robust, diverse state, and I've been exposed to a lot of different community groups, from immigrants, from working with the immigrant community, to people that have been living here for years, and I have this sense of just really connecting with people, and that's what keeps me motivated to continuing and pursuing more. And my personal research has been, it's been with the Fiji Indian community, because identity and visibility in public health is very important, and when a person comes from that community and represents them, that is when others get to know about that community. And so a lot of my work frames around cultural competency. We've heard a little bit about that. And then I've been a case manager too, so the work that the previous panelists shared, I very much connect to that work, because that was a lot of my work that I have done before pursuing my doctorate. So with my doctorate, my research right now is in health equity and policy, and working with gender-based issues surrounding diverse and underrepresented communities. And pass it on now. Thank you.
Hello again. I talked. You could see earlier a little bit of my work. My name is Karolina Lukasiewicz. I'm postdoctoral research fellow at Max Silver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research, which is based in Silver School of Social Work at New York University. And I'm working there on my project about different forms of assistance for refugees. in New York City area, and I'm also teaching MSW student. I'm teaching social policy. And prior to that, I was doing my PhD back in Europe, in Poland, about integration of refugees in Europe. I was also working in different projects related to anti-discrimination and developing anti-discrimination policies for Polish government. And I'm also involved in different activities other than just my professional, but I guess I will discuss it later on. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you, Nirshila, now Nirshila, you said about equity and diverse underrepresented communities. Could you elaborate a little more on what that definition is as far as your study goes? What underrepresented communities are you talking about?
When I talk about underrepresented communities, I think it spans from many different areas. First, women are underrepresented in many situations, as we know. So a big part of my work is also data and the way that data is being collected. So in America, some of the categories are Asian Pacific Islander, Caucasian, white, African American, Hispanic. And within these ethnic categories, people are lumped in. So for instance, when someone comes in from Fiji and someone comes in from, I'm taking Fiji because I'm from there, or someone that comes in from, let's say, Mongolia, they're considered under the same Asian Pacific Islander category. So what happens is the way the data is being captured, it doesn't really tell the story of where each person is. So the visibility of identities is lost. And so so what I mean by it, so linking that back to health equity, as I mentioned, when someone comes forward and talks about their communities and their cultures and paints a picture of their health, of their cultural health and situations, from health to livelihood to many different situations, that then that's how people get to know that this community is visible and represented, and therefore policies are made for these communities. And that's something that many people from various different nonprofit organizations to governmental officials are working on, especially in California right now. So I can speak on behalf of California since I live there.
Paola, I'm going to ask you first about time balance. How do you balance the work that you do as far as your career and your education, your schooling, with doing work for social justice and advocacy?
That is a really important and big question. It's something that I still struggle. So something that I didn't mention earlier is that, yes, I talked about my research, but I'm also very involved in organizations that where we use science as a tool to empower minorities. And I work with different Peruvian organizations and organizations in the US where we work with girls and also with Peruvian undergrads, etc. And again, I won't go in details about that, but the balance between my research, which is in the intestines of fruit flies, and working with my community is something that I struggle a lot, because I spend so much time in lab, and not only that, but there are also classes and other academic duties that I have to fulfill, and then I want to help my community. It's part of who I am, and that leaves also little time for my personal life, and vice versa. And I think I go through highs and lows. The answer is I still haven't achieved a balance, and this is something that I talk a lot about with faculty when I meet with them, with senior faculty. And I always ask them, how do you balance all these social justice and advocacy things that you're involved in and being a faculty at Stanford, for example, which is where I'm at. And they are always like, you just go with the flow, go what feels right. And I think now I'm at a healthier state where I'm okay with not being able to find balance, because I also understand that balance has a different meaning at different stages of my life. Like, I don't have kids right now, but if I do at some point, that's all gonna be part of the equation. I'm just a PhD student now, but if one day I become a faculty and I'm going through the tenure process, that's gonna be a different load of work. So the answer is I struggle with that, and I'm working on being okay with that. That balance has different meanings at different stages, and I can only do what feels right for me at certain moments.
Karolina, we'll ask you, since you are a mother, how you do the balancing, because you're a busy lady as well, and you have you're a lot of involvement not only in academics but also in work-related areas. So tell us how you manage that.
Good question. I don't have a good answer actually. I'm sometimes struggling. I'm struggling with my sense of guilt, which is like constantly either I feel guilty about my son, or I feel guilty about my work or other things. But yeah, maybe I should start with the activities that I'm doing other than just my research. So well, it's kind of connected to my research to understand the communities with which I'm working better. I'm volunteering into refugee resettlement agencies, and I'm evaluating some of the programs. And I'm also involved in different activities that are happening in my university. We developed something which is called Silver Strategy and Tactics of Action Group after the election, which gathered different scholars and different efforts involved in social justice. So I'm coordinating their immigration group, and we organize different discussion panels, produce newsletters, and I'm also developing for my department workshops. We have a very good one called Words Matter, about using anti-oppressive vocabulary, because it's turned out that even being scholars or at whichever level, we struggle with using proper words that wouldn't hurt the communities to which we're addressing different efforts. So these are the kind of like additional things that I'm involved in, and it's difficult. I don't have a good solution yet. I just feel that sometimes I could do better not getting involved in some things, but then I think the advocacy is important, and I kind of a sense of satisfaction that I get after organizing some events, and when I see my students getting involved and starting volunteering too. So it just kind of convinced me to do more.
Well, I have a similar experience to Paola. Only because, well, I was heavily involved in advocacy and outreach work prior to becoming a student. And so that was integrated into my work as a community health worker. And then after joining, after deciding to go back to school, I left my job to pursue school full-time so that I could be fully committed. And also being a student after being away for 5 years from being in school, it's a whole other mind shift. So I was readjusting, and one of the things that I found was the best way to do advocacy was through the internet. And whenever I read articles, shared on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and I've stayed connected with the work that with the organization that I have been been going to organizational meetings, but not as much because right now I'm fully trying to connect with being just being a student and getting through my studies, and it's challenging being to time balance, and I get excited by lots of different things, and right now is the time for me to learn and really see where exactly I want to go into, which direction. So, thank you.
Paola, what is the focus of most of your social justice advocacy work? I assume yours is in immigration. Would you say that's what yours would be? And yours would be public health? Okay.
For me, it would be STEM, which we were talking about yesterday. I would say that the main two organizations that I work with are, one of them is we facilitate internships for Peruvian undergrads who are majoring in life science, who are doing a major in life sciences, to have research experiences here in the US, Canada, and Europe. And that has been great because a lot of these Peruvian undergrads, they are very motivated and they want to, become better scientists, but if they apply to programs abroad, they won't be accepted because they don't have good research experience. So that's what we're working on changing, and this program has been running for 10 years. And I participated in the program in 2012, which was when I was finishing college, and thanks to that I got to do an internship at Yale University, and that helped a lot in me starting my PhD the following year at Stanford. And it's so beautiful to see, I call them my kids, but they're they're like a few years younger than I am, but to see them go through this process and then apply to grad school and being accepted and just growing, it's great. So that's one thing. And the other one that I mentioned with Peruvian girls, and where we use science as a tool to empower them. This is a program that goes from April to November. And we organize scientific workshops for them, but we work a lot on using science to develop their self-esteem and their critical thinking. Because maybe most of you or a lot of you have experienced this, but sometimes when you're little and you go to front of the class to present something or read something, and then someone laughs, and that's the end. Yep. That's it, it's over. But what you see in a lot of boys is, boy goes to the front, presents, someone laughs, and he's like, shut up, or I'll kick you, or something. And everyone keeps on laughing, and it's fine, and the boy goes back to his seat, and things are okay. So the impact there's a lot of things, a lot of work to be done with boys as well, but we focus on girls. And a question, this is something else, I'll just add one more thing, that we get asked a lot back home is, why only girls, why not mixed, right? Because there's a lot of need for boys as well. And this is where the scientist in me comes from. There's a lot of research done on the performance of groups where there are only girls, where there are only boys, mixed, etc. And maybe one day we would have enough human resources to do a program for everyone. But with the human, everything's voluntary, so with the human resources that we have, we used to use money from our pockets, but now we've been getting money from external sources, so we are focusing mainly on girls. And yeah, again, it's beautiful seeing them grow, so I would say mainly in STEM.
What ages?
8 to 11.
Great.
I'm going to ask you if, now I'm not sure how long you consider yourself being in the United States, but the other two of you, did you do any of this social justice advocacy before you came to the United States? And I'll start with you, Karolina.
Yes, before I came to the United States, I was working with agencies assisting refugees in Europe, in different countries. And I was also involved in different projects or workshops assisting refugee women, different empowering workshops. And yeah, that was one of the first things when I moved to the States to look for similar agencies and organizations that I would work earlier back in Europe, and I found them, and that's what I'm doing now.
Do you have any?
Well, I moved here when I was 7, so I mean, becoming my parents. Well, my parents, yes, my great grandparents, my grandparents, my parents. They were all involved in some type of work back in Fiji. I would actually say my grandmothers were in women's empowerment, especially in the faith-based centers. I grew up, so in Fiji there's a large Indian community that came from the South Asian, our origins are from the South Asian, they come from South Asia. And my great-grandparents came as indentured laborers to work in sugarcane plantations in Fiji. So they came, they brought their community, their cultures, and then they stayed there after the indentured labor system ended, and they just cultivated their own identity there and their own ways of living. And so Fiji struggled with so much, political tension that a lot of Indians started migrating out. So, but while they were living there, they did a lot of work with their faith centers, a lot of work with social justice issues related to indentured laborers, and they were involved in the political system there. I don't know for how long, but my dad's family was involved in the sugarcane social justice movement, whereas my mom's side of the family, they were more involved in community well-being and whatnot, and the faith centers played a very integral part, as they do here in America too, because the faith centers are still a very big part of our lives, and it's a place where people get together, where they discuss their issues, problems, and everyone kind of helps to navigate each other through the system, especially when there's new people that are joining our community from Fiji or from wherever else. But yes, and I think that because of them being involved, that's where my desire comes of being involved in public health. So, thank you.
I moved here 4 years ago. So I was 21, 22, or 22 already. And back home in Peru, I did a lot of outreach. Growing up, it was very interesting because so my dad worked a lot with his community before I was born, but after I was born, also for political reasons, he stopped for safety reasons. But growing up, even though we were pretty poor, as part of our community, I was always taught that as long as we have one bread, it doesn't matter. We can share it amongst 10, 20, 30 people. But yeah, I think those values were instilling me since I was very young. What's interesting is that as I grew older, as a teenager, I really wanted to volunteer in hospitals or something. I was forbidden. My parents were like, that's not happening, because the health system in some public hospitals it can be dangerous for yourself as well, right? It's not as regulated. But as soon as I turned 18, which was the legal age, of course I went and I enrolled in the volunteer. My parents weren't too happy, especially my mom. But yes, so I worked a lot. I learned a lot from those kids. Their resilience is amazing.
We saw that in the movie yesterday, how the kids were narrating the story, and you're like horrified, but they're like so happy. So yes, and with orphanages as well.
So you talked about time balance and your struggles with that, as probably we all in this room who are active in some kinds of causes have the issue of time balance. This is a question that talks about your integration of what you do in the lab with what you do in the community. So how do you know, or what is the spark that makes you go from your lab work to your outside community work, or how do you integrate the two, if you can? And I'll start with you.
Well, let's see. Time balance, as I mentioned, is a struggle. I mean, right now my full-on concentration is just finishing up my coursework and being a second-year doctoral student. That's all I'm doing, I feel like. But this year especially, well, after completing my first year and getting a better idea of policy work and management and valuation, this is all stuff that I never really got a chance to really learn about while I was working as a community health worker, because most of my work was in direct services. But now having that experience, I realized that in policy and this type of work, you really need to be a really good public speaker, and you need to be in front and in the present. And I tend to want to be more sitting down and listening, because that's who I am. But that's a skill that I'm working on and learning. Now applying that. So now my next step is learning to apply that. So this semester, or this year in school, I've gotten a fellowship where I will be working in health policy back in California, and it's an urban planning one. So it's a different type of policy, community work that I'm normally used to. It's more working with high school students, which is a whole other type of group and community that I've never worked with, because high schoolers are at a different stage now. And it's to help them learn about how to be more involved in their communities, and it's in urban development. So I start that when I get back. And also kind of helping the program cultivate the policies that can integrate more students into their communities. So I'll get more of that experience. And then being involved in organizations like this, I feel like has really just, it's a way to bridge my work with different people and share it. And also having the social support that I need from my colleagues and from all of you that's here. I mean, where's Faye? I met Faye, and that's why I got involved in this organization. And she interviewed me. I interviewed her. And I'm here now. And also I have a lot of support from my professors, who have been really instrumental in where I am right now. And having, I guess, life experience, being out in the field and coming back to school, and especially doing a doctorate, it's a totally different experience, because I bring in a different type of knowledge and different type of desire and willing to learn than coming straight from, let's say, an undergrad or from a master's. So it's a very good place to be in right now.
Well, for me, it's kind of connected to what I was saying earlier, that unfortunately, doing research on the testing of fruit flies, it's very hard to integrate with other things. However, being at Stanford has given me access to so many resources and to so many people that I'm able now to talk to so many people that the work that I do in trying to reach organizations in the US and Peru is benefited from this. And one small example is with the organization that I mentioned, where we use science to empower Peruvian girls. Stanford professor developed these, they're called origami microscopes, but are paper-based microscopes. And they're actually becoming really popular. And the Foldscope, he has an amazing TED Talk, and he was awesome. And I found out about this one on my first year as a grad student, so I went and talked to him. He was really excited, and since then we've had kind of, it's not a collaboration exactly, but whenever we need them, we go to him, and he's been very gracious. One of his post-doctorates actually went to Peru this year to meet the girls. So, now these girls are having access to amazing, brilliant scientists from the US. So that's just one example of that. And again, being here in the US gives me access to, all of you, which are awesome. Now you're hearing about things that are happening in Peru. And for example, 2 weeks ago, I was in New York for a stem cell research conference. And I was talking, of course, about research with faculty, but I remember vividly this conversation that I had with faculty two faculty from Harvard, and then an editor from a scientific magazine, and then we were talking about gender equality in science. And just having access to those people, it's awesome, and that's how I integrate my academic scientific environment with my passion for social justice.
So I was trying to integrate my academic involvement and social justice already back in Poland, and I was then, when I was working in different anti-discrimination projects, I learned about how to involve communities in work, and I was trying to do that through different projects. But I really learned how to do that when I moved to the United States, and in the Max Silver Institute that I'm based in, there is a community collaborative board. It's a board which is comprised of representatives of different communities that we're working with, and all of the projects that are being developed are consulted and built together, and also different advocacy efforts are built together, and then for a very pragmatic reason to have a much better outcomes, but it's also this kind of approach that of partnership, basically. And when I'm doing currently my different advocacy activities, I'm trying to have this kind of approach. So, for example, when talking to different representative of communities that I would, different immigrant communities, but also we're working with different low-income communities, so people would often complain about labels that are being used about them. So this is how we got to developing this workshop of using anti-oppressive vocabulary. And this is something which is just, on the sides of it's just one of kind of advocacy or outreach efforts that we are making to encourage different group, even within our own office, to be careful about the words we use. And then in the same kind of participatory approach we use in this group that I'm involved. Immigrant group under Silver Strategy and Tactics of Action. So when we organize different panels, discussion panels about refugees, we always try to have representative of different communities present, and not just present, but having their voice heard and having as equalized power relation as possible. Yes.
You mentioned this, we've already talked a little bit briefly, all of you have mentioned this, but maybe you can elaborate just a little bit. How much support do you get from the institution where you're currently going to school and getting your degree? So we're asking about, are they giving you support, and if so, are you happy with it?
I don't know how specific that is for schools of social work, but I think it's a little bit that, when there are social work students trained, so there is also the kind of spirit which is very, very supportive, and this is also something that I'm trying to build with my students. So yes, so far, whenever we came up with any idea organizing first, second, third discussion panels, everybody was, yes, let's do it, that's great, and what do you need? So that was great, and I feel like there are many opportunities. Basically, the sky is the limit, what kind of idea we get of organizing all sorts of events, so that's possible. And then apart from just university setting, being based in New York City, that's also opening a lot of opportunities and resources. So I'm trying to use everything I can. Just to contrast it, when I was living in Poland, Poland is a very homogenized ethnically country. There are very few organizations, So also the opportunities to act were much smaller. So I'm trying to use as much as I can from being in New York and being based at NYU.
Yes, very much so. I have a lot of social support from my professors, from the school, from my colleagues, especially my program. It's not a PhD, it's a doctorate in public health, so it's an applied degree. And there are professionals that have come from all different parts of the world to come to school there. And so we all share a commonality of wanting to be in school in this age in our life and stage in our life. And the professors are it's a very intimate, if you guys don't know about the Claremont Colleges, we're a very small liberal arts school in Los Angeles. It's right located in the Inland Valleys. And specifically, Claremont is a very small university. And so it's intimate in that everyone supports each other. When we have an idea, people try to make it happen for us. And this year, especially now that I'm much more comfortable being a second-year graduate student, I feel like more opportunities have opened up. Last week I was in Hawaii for a conference, and I went there to present my research on the Fiji Indian community at a Pacific Islander gathering conference, and that was very much supported by my school. And then they're supporting me being here today, and I've been learning so much about the SDGs, and I told my professors that make sure you share and integrate what you're learning in our classroom into your presentation. And in 2 weeks with one of my professors, she selected 3 students to go to the UN with her, and I got selected as one of them. So there's a lot of support, and as Karolina mentioned, she lives in a robust city. I live in a robust city, so does Paola, and there's so much opportunity in our cities, and especially for research. And right now, I have 5 ideas for a dissertation, and they're all supported, and I cannot focus on one of them. But all my professors and my colleagues support them, and so I have a lot of support. I mean, this is the best time for me to be in school. So, and I have to say, I sometimes feel like what would have happened if I were still in Fiji at this age, because I'm in my 30s, and I don't know, because of ageism and other types of stigmas and stereotypes against being a woman too, when someone in my 30s, I don't know if I've had this much support, and also the cultural barrier will come in its own way. So yeah, it's a good time for me, good place.
Yeah, for me, it's a bit different. So in general, the staff, the Office of Graduate Education and Biosciences, like when they hear about the stuff I do that's not related to lab research, right? That's about the science outreach that I do. They think it's great. When I talk about it with people in general, they think the work I do is important, and they think it's great too. However, sometimes in academia they expect you to be in lab 24/7, and the time that you are not spending in lab is okay. You need to sleep, and that's it. And some of them don't understand exactly even why I care. One thing that I love about scientists, and this is generalizing, is that they're very curious and inquisitive, and if they have a question, they'll ask you for sure. But sometimes that has been hurtful too. Like I remember in my first year when they knew, I love volunteering, and they knew I work with like communities near Stanford. I remember one faculty, when they came up, very happy, a woman, she was like, I have a question for you. I was like, oh sure. Why do you like to work with poor people? And I remember just looking at her, and I honestly didn't know how to answer that. I mean, so you're telling me, like, it didn't make any sense. And that's just to exemplify how I feel like some people they think the work that we all do is great. They would rather other people take care of it instead of their students or their faculty. And that's why it's so important for me to work on changing that environment in academia, But I mean, changing society is really hard. So.
But it starts somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, in general, people have been very supportive. It's just very hard for some of them to understand why you, a scientist, a PhD student, has because I have to, if not I'll die, to do that. So yeah.
This is a selfish question for our organization. What attracted you to WGUSA, and why did you come? Why did you get connected to us, and why do you support our work? Who wants to go first?
I guess Faye is in the. Yes, Faye the recruiter. Well, my concentration is in applied women's studies, and so when I was I was just one day just sitting down and just looking for an organization. In public health, we have the Association of Public Health, which is a massive organization. You kind of get lost, and everyone knows you by. It felt like you're known as an ID number. That's it, and it's really hard to be involved. Because there's already so many people that want to be involved in an organization. So when I was looking for something to be involved in, this organization popped up. And I was just wanting to learn more, and also the mission and vision of this organization aligns with what I'm doing and my vision for life. I feel like I reached out, and Faye, I didn't even know she lived in Southern California, and she came and met with me, and we had this wonderful conversation, and I didn't even know she was the president. And from that, we made a really great relationship, and I really like intimate organizations where I can talk to people, get to know you by your name, and we can share each other's stories and not get lost in the crowd, because I think we're really in this moment in time, we need to learn more about each other and know our stories, because it's so important to the way we share our experiences, and we live in a country where sometimes that's at this moment it's kind of overlooked, and so it's such a beautiful place to be, and coming here, getting to know all of you guys, and sharing your stories, and having similar experiences from many people here in the audience, and from my colleagues, and from the students that spoke, because I could really empathize with the way they were raised and the experiences they've gone through. I feel this is a great place to be, and I'd like to be a part of it and help it grow however I can. Thank you.
You're right.
So I got involved to WGUSA through Sharada, who connected me during. I'm international fellow from AAW. I got a postdoctoral fellowship there, and once I went to present my research in the meeting of AAW at Long Island, there I learned about WGUSA, and I thought it might be a good way also to. Since I learned very quickly that there is an interest in refugees among you, so I thought that I can make some use of my research and what I'm learning. So as a way of outreach also, and I hope that this is what I can do here, and this is how I can contribute to organization by educating. Maybe I will be able to get involved in promoting some of the workshops that we develop in my institute. So and I also like the fact that the organization and the way we meet here, we can have a more personal contacts in other great organizations that I'm a member of, such as International Association for Study of Forced Migration. That's great. There's a couple of thousand people there, and I know their articles maybe, but there's no way to really get to know each other. So I think having more personal relations is very good, and and specifically the focus on women issues is something which is very important for me, especially when I became a mother and being a woman became even more visible or experienced by me. So.
Yeah, so last year in November, because of a research collaboration with a lab in Lausanne, Switzerland, I got to spend a month. This is the beauty of science as well. I got a fellowship from the European Molecular Biology Organization, and I got to spend a month in Switzerland. But because I was collaborating with them, we had a very strict, like the schedule was like maybe from 9 to 5, and we didn't work on the weekends. And I was like, oh wow, I have so much extra time because I like work all day, even weekends, like here. So on the weekends, I was gonna visit friends that I had in Europe, but I started wondering, oh, you know, after I did lab here in Lausanne, Switzerland, what can I do? So internet. And that's how I heard of GWI, Graduate Women International, because they had an office in Geneva. And I don't know if I emailed them or Facebook messaged them, and long story short, they were like, sure, come visit us, we would love to talk to you. And that's how I found out about GWI, because Geneva and Lausanne are really close. And then they put me in touch with the community of Women Graduates USA, and that's how I ended up joining. I remember speaking on the phone with Faye, and yeah, so that was great. And to the second part of the question of what can be done to support us, I agree with what has been said already, and I think something that I want to emphasize, that I think Nirshila and Karolina, both of you mentioned this, is the idea of community. Maybe we can have more events, like say, I don't know how many members we have in the Bay Area, but I know you visit often and I live there, so maybe, you know, having get-togethers where we can be a community together and support each other and exchange ideas. And also, you know, I love this past couple of days because I've been bouncing off ideas with all of you, and you know, the advice that you provide, it's very insightful. So I would say that as well, bouncing off ideas and sharing experiences, that is very important for me and for everyone.
I'm going to call Logis to come up. Logis was going to be on our panel, but there were other things that interfered with her being able to participate, and we don't have to discuss that, I guess, just unless you want to bring it up. But would you mind sitting down here and just telling us a little bit about how you got connected with WG, and sort of tell about your recent move and your job and all of that,
As long as there is no recording going on for myself, it's fine. So hello everyone. I know a lot of your name through WG volunteering since last 3 years, but this is the first time I'm meeting many of you in person, so I'm very happy to be here. And I'd like to first share my thanks for GVI and BG for their fellowship and for all their support in the last 3 years. So first I would like to say how I introduced to WG. So just like randomly I was checking for the organization to involve, because I didn't have any kind of connections when I joined for my PhD here. So back in India, I had a lot of interest to serve, but as we know, it was not supported through family, or we didn't have any kind of support through university. So when I was in vet school, there were a lot of barriers for women, first of all, to be in vet school. That was kind of like a completely different thing. Like having a woman student, we had like only 19 girl students and we had like 62 boys in our vet school class. So it's kind of like completely different ball game, and it was a lot of barrier. Yeah. And also being from a rural Indian village, and it was a lot of hard time to go into school, and being in a co-education college, there were many barriers that I had to come across. So I had interest to do social services, but I didn't have chances, and I was not having enough exposure, first of all, because I was not knowing anything much, and so I don't know what kind of things I can go and do in the society. But when I got here for my PhD admission, I joined PhD in toxicology in Texas Tech. So during my first year of program, we have got a lot of outreach for the Hispanic and minority students through our program. So that is the first thing I got exposure, and when we went to school and we do a lot of science for judging and those kind of things, it was amazed to me because I never had any such experience until my vet school in my hometown or home schools or anywhere else. So I thought, okay, this is something good place where I can start doing, even though I had interest. I didn't have opportunity, but now I have got opportunity. So I started involving on all the science outreach from my first year, and luckily it was supported through some of the graduate coordination, but I would say it was not completely supported by my PhD advisor that, they are paying research funding to be in PhD program. So they want you to be all the time in the lab, as you say. And it was hard to find time. But in my case especially, it was possible because my husband also did PhD in the same lab. So I ran my experiment and I asked him to take care of experiment. I go for volunteering. So that is how I ended up doing I was able to do a lot of science outreach. So that was mainly for schools and local community colleges in the South Plain area in the Lubbock. That is a place called Lubbock. It's 8 hours from Houston. So many of you might have known about the place. It's close to New Mexico. So I was able to do a lot of science outreach within schools in and around the Lubbock area. But most of my main diversity act and lot of outreach for STEM is through my toxicology professional society, that is called Society of Toxicology. So they do have a lot of diversity programs and kind of lot of STEM encouragement program. It's mainly for toxicology in specific, not STEM in general, but still being a part of a professional society member, I was able to serve on many of the different committees and a lot of undergraduate programs, serving as a peer mentor for undergraduates and serve on the committees in women in toxicology group, because overall there is very less participation of women in toxicology as compared to men. Like in the huge professional society of toxicology, we have very less number of women represented. So that is how the specialty section called Women in Toxicology. So in that group, we want to inspire or encourage more women coming to toxicology profession. So I could get a lot of chances and opportunity to serve on various committees and involve and everything that I have been doing for 3 years. And when I came here, I was not good at English at all. I was like how the girls, they were talking during lunchtime. I was having like really average or below average English. So that was kind of part of the thing that I wanted to go in community, and I wanted to gain more confidence. I wanted to gain, be with people and able to speak to them. Still sometimes I feel that even though now I finished, I graduated, I joined jobs, still I'm feeling I'm not confident enough. But I have gained a lot of leadership skills and confidence in the last 4 years. So with all my outreach activities and different kind of services, I got 100 Inspiring Women in STEM Award in 2016. It's a recognition given by Insight into Diversity magazine. So they recognize this mainly for women who encourage, inspire younger generation into STEM in general, and specifically what kind of subject area you are serving. So it was one of the recognition put together through the Professional Society of Toxicology. They have nominated me, like I was not sure who nominated me, just I heard that you have got, and it was like so surprising because just 100 inspiring women in US, that is really something big thing. And and the same year I received President's Excellent Diversity and Equity Award from my university. So they were kind of biggest achievements, I think. When I started involving in all these outreach services, I didn't know what's the impact it's going to cause. All I know is something I didn't have opportunity to experience, I didn't have exposure. But now I have opportunity, so I have to do something to make meaningful impact with the younger generation. That is how I started doing it. But it has resulted in a lot of big things and big recognition, and it's very nice. So wherever I'm going, including when I went for my job interview, that is what they asked in my CV that they have put. So it's something. It's very great thing to be with WG and GVA, and yeah, thank you for all your support and everything.
And I'm going to just look at these ladies up here. They're the future of our organization. They're all leaders. Logius is the co-chair, I think, of membership. Is that correct? Am I? Co-convener, excuse me, that I don't have to have the right term. The co-convener of our membership group in WG. I have one question here that came from Faye, and then we'll open this up to anybody that might have some questions of any of the women here. And you may or may not want to respond to this, but you can. In the current climate, what strategies or operational changes might WG USA consider in becoming a more effective advocate for issues affecting women and girls?
We want you to let us have it.
What can we, I'll say it one more time. What can WG how can, in the current climate that we have in the U.S. today, what strategies or operational changes might WG USA consider in becoming an effective advocate for issues affecting women and girls?
Yeah, so one of the main reasons that why I wanted to come to this meeting was to learn more about WG USA. I'm part of the education group as well, so I've been learning through the monthly meetings. But I feel like now, after this couple of days learning about what's being done, I am really, well, I remember when WG or GW, well, no, it was WG USA, released a statement when the travel ban happened. So that was very important for me, because even my own university had been struggling with their position and stance on those topics. So for me there was a huge, so even though I wasn't affected at all, as an international student and having and knowing people who were affected by that, it was really important for me to see that. So please keep on doing that. Speaking out when it's needed, and hearing, when I focus on STEM and science, hearing about the initiative between Russia and the US and this ongoing collaboration that we heard about yesterday, that is awesome. So I would love to see more STEM-related initiatives, not only with Russia, but with other countries, with Peru, with Latin American countries, because I'm very familiar with that, and in general, with just so many, something that I'm also very passionate about. Last year, I had the opportunity to meet some refugees, and maybe there are opportunities there to be done to collaborate with them, develop STEM-related initiatives. As we've talked a lot about mental health, so using maybe science, and not to empower them, but just as a tool to overcome trauma, for example, to use arts to express themselves, like STEAM. So I would love to see some programs like that.
Let's see. Well, I feel like that WG does such a guys do such great work in addressing public health issues. I mean, everything that we're talking about here is how it relates back to the quality of life of people in the global world. So keep up with it. But the one thing I was thinking about actually while Paola was talking, and while meeting the girls during lunchtime, is how about setting up some kind of a mentorship program where we can serve as mentors for these young women virtually too. I think that'd be a great idea, because I mean, we can learn from them, they can learn from us, and maybe all of you guys are our mentors, so I feel like that will be something that we can move on. But as far as advocacy work goes, I feel like you guys do a great job with advocacy already, because I've been also reading through The Flame and through these emails that you guys send, and you guys are already doing what you can. So, and also be involved nationally. I know you guys are involved with the UN and attend the meetings, so just keep on doing what you're doing, and I know with time more opportunities will continue to arise. So, thank you.
Well, I was all the time very happy to see the interest in the issues related to refugees, and I can think of different projects that are going on in New York City involving volunteering or also mentorship, that maybe that's something that could be multiplied in different parts of the States. It's very exciting to me see you coming from all over the country, from very different communities, where you probably have different groups of immigrants or refugees. So this is something I had in mind, and also including. I was very happy to see the competition that that was organized during our lunch, and getting involved or getting heard the voices of refugees and communities that we want to address our efforts. I think is absolutely critical, and that was really amazing for me.